So you've taken us through the process there, how you come up with an idea, whether it's to buy pullbacks in a sort of uptrending market. You then code that, you test it on various markets. You've got about 7 or 8 instruments that you use. Then you put it through the walk forward analysis, and not only in that time frame that you look at, but you look at several time frames, hourly through to daily. I mean, you must come up with some fairly good strategies at the end of that process. That sounds like an exhaustive process that most people just wouldn't do at all.
That's true. Well, true on both counts. Most people don't want to do it, and they don't know they should do it. They don't want to do it, and something that gets through that usually is very robust.
Yeah.
That's not even to say, for example, that it still can't fail, because it's still possible that it can hit a bad patch. And
yeah.
That's not, I don't consider that failing, but it's certainly, that's why we have that's why we have a lot of strategies.
Yeah. So going from just one strategy, obviously, if you trade the E-mini on an hourly chart, that's one strategy. That's not a full system. What you've got is multiple strategies trading a whole portfolio, obviously with a lot of money management involved there. That's a much more robust and long-term way of trading a large amount of money. I mean, to the ordinary trader who's starting off with, maybe $30,000-$40,000, how would you suggest they trade, and what type of strategy would you think people need?
Great question. I personally feel it's extremely important to have multiple strategies on any particular market you want to trade. I think that's really, really important. Because for example, we categorize them in terms of with trend, counter trend, and now we have a category where we have trend neutral, and it's very important, or for that matter, we have no filtration in terms of trend. That's a fourth choice. I think it's very important to have different strategies, because different strategies will really do well at some periods, and they'll do better than other strategies. So you want to have the ability to revert to something. If one of them goes south or is having a bad patch, you want to be able to defer to the one that's actually doing very well. So that's one thing. I think I think ultimately what I would tell a person with that is I would tell them to come up with something, 3 strategies that are different from one another on 3 different markets. Say something like the E-mini or the NASDAQ, crude and gold, for example, would be a nice little mini portfolio, because you really need diversification by strategy and by market. And with an account that size, you might be hard pressed to even do it with getting that much into an account like that, but it's worth a look, and then you can pare it down accordingly and add to it as your money grows.
Obviously, bigger accounts, you're talking 100,000 plus. You'd probably put about 30,000 per towards each strategy, so you could have 3 or 4 strategies that would run fairly easily on an account that size. Sure.
Well, the thing is, remember, we always, as a professional money manager, it's expected of us that we leverage much more conservatively than the average trader would. So a lot of traders would leverage a lot more heavily than we do, for example, in our managed account program.
Yeah.
So yeah, you probably could, but it depends on the market. If you're trading a market that's not, did I lose? Yeah, there we go.
No, you just went loud for a bit there, but alter the volume.
Am I back? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that probably is practical to do it that way.
Yeah. Okay. So, how would you suggest now people who, in my position, for instance, I traded a trend following system for a lot of years, did very well, but obviously the ups and downs of the market are such that it's quite hard psychologically to sort of stay with a system or a strategy like that. How would you suggest people just coming into the market now, I mean, should trade? I mean, we've gone through this type of strategies. Is it going to be easy for a new trader to make the leap from reading about trading in the popular sort of internet sites to making the jump to your type of trading, which is so much more sophisticated and in the end a lot better for them in terms of profitability and likelihood of success? I mean, you know, we hear 95+% of traders are doomed to fail, even if they're trading something automated, something tested they've bought over the internet. I mean, there are so many pitfalls to fall into. You know, if I could say one thing to traders, it would be, you know, forget everything that you've probably read up till now. I mean, looking at what you produce, this is the trading strategies that you want. These are the strategies used by hedge funds, by very wealthy people who know what they're doing with money. As an individual trader, you'd be foolish not to adopt something like this, surely.
I would. How long did it take you to get through medical school?
Yeah, quite. Yeah, 6 years.
Yeah. So I mean, why do you? And there's a great line from W.D. Gann, who simply said, you know, doctors go to school for 4 to 8 years. Lawyers go to school for 3 years to become a lawyer. Why do you think because you have $10,000 you can become you're a trader? You know, you're not. Yes, trading is not for everybody. It's aside from even having a strategy that works. I mean, I have a friend I've known for years who is actually pretty good at building strategies, but he just can't discipline himself to stick with it. He actually he had success with it because he had a partner who actually would just he'd run the systems. One guy would build and the other partner would trade him, and but unfortunately for my friend, his partner who traded it died. So he went back to his old ways of jumping around with this trading strategy, and he's getting better at it. But it's a psychological thing too. I mean, traders, the reason why most people can't trade with discretion is because they don't have any discipline. And the same thing is true for people who are trading with systems. They really, I mean, I had an acquaintance here who was one of my first customers when I first started selling trading software. This is it's a funny story. He was a trader in the T-bond pit when they used to be pits. We were friends. He was a very friendly, warm guy, and we got along great. I said, Tony, let's give me we'll open a $5,000 account and I'll give you signals on 5 markets, and we'll split the profits. So we said, okay, let's do this. So we started doing it. So I did my part. I gave him the trades, and every trade that I gave him, either he'd argue about it, he wouldn't want to do it, or he'd put it on, then he'd get out, or he'd screw around with it. And I think you know how the story happens here. At the end of the month, we remained friends, but we agreed not to keep on doing this because it was too aggravating. The system was up $5,000 in that time period, and and the account lost money because of all of his kibitzing. So you know, one of the things about Dunn that I always liked is, you know, Bill is a great believer in systematic trading, and he will his things really, some of the things he did to XT99 that I actually changed for Renaissance made it a more volatile than it really needed to be. He wants to be in every market, but he wants to go in heavy every trade, and it worked well for him. But we sat through a long drawdown with XT99. He sat through even a worse drawdown with their stuff, but he sat through it because he believed in it. And that's the one thing, I think the one thing a lot of people really have trouble with is they have a hard time sticking with something when it gets into a bad patch. And there's always the issue of, is it really a bad patch, or is it really did something really change and destroy the strategy? That's not an easy question to answer. But as long as you can say, what I can say easily enough is, as long as the strategy is basically performing reasonably close within expectations of testing, even if it's going having a drawdown, because I guarantee you, if you look at your back test, you're going to find some drawdowns in there. We analyze our portfolio, and it gives us an analysis of every single run up and every single drawdown, and there are many drawdowns that in any strategy that's successful. So as long as it's basically within performance profile, then you have to stick with it. Or like what we do is since we have lots of strategies, we simply go with the ones that are hot at any particular point in time, and the ones that are cooler, we back off on those for a while.
Yeah.
Until they come back to life. So that's the hardest thing. People don't have discipline. People don't know. They not only do they not have discipline, they are usually full of a lot of doubt. They don't really understand their strategy well enough to really believe in it. And if they can't really believe in it, they're not going to stick with it when the going gets rough.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are the major things there, isn't it? That, I had a trading strategy which I utterly believed in and would follow it, 30% sort of drawdown without any problem whatsoever. And likewise with your strategies, since I've been trading your strategies, I know they work. I know they're robust. They don't lose money dramatically, and they have performance. So, as you sort of quoted recently to me, that, if you don't have robustness, you don't have a strategy, just how did you phrase it? A potentially
seductive fantasy.
Fantasy, that was it. And that's so true, isn't it? You just buy into it, a strategy that you think will work, and you buy into it. Whereas really, even the mechanics of the actual trading are nowhere near profitable. So you can be trading something for a few years and not realize that your equity curve is slowly sinking. And you won't have a clue. So, I think most traders start off at that position where they think they've got a strategy and they don't even have that. All the other bits that are even harder, like the psychology of following a strategy, become even more difficult because your strategy is not working. So, start off with a robust strategy that is profitable, and everything from there, gets a little bit easier. Trading is very difficult. Like you say, I trained for 6 years to be a medic. You trade in any job, a number of years to do it well. Why do you expect to go into trading to suddenly take a 10K account to $1 million? It's just not going to happen, is it?
No.
But you do increase the chance.
Who did it once? He ran a 10,000 to 2 million, then ran 2 million to 1 million. So.
Yeah. So, well, thank you, Bob, for going through the process that you use. It sounds very thorough. Your testing, I know this from firsthand, is just amazingly detailed. You take a strategy from the concept of it, run it through all the testing that you do, and it is so time intensive. I know you've got several computers sort of working flat out on testing these strategies. It's not just a simple case of plugging it in and 5 minutes later you get an answer. Your computers seem to be running day and night on this stuff. That's fair to say, isn't it?
And we're a lot of them out, actually.